Well, it's hard to believe that it has been 3 years since the Canada-European Union Comprehensive Economic and Trade Agreement, or CETA, came into effect. Maybe that has something to do with the political and economic climate since. And then, of course, there's COVID-19. Large and significant trade deals almost seem like part of another era. So, does this anniversary bring hope for better outcomes on the other side of the maelstrom? CETA's successes speak for themselves. An excellent report from the economists at Global Affairs Canada spells it out. After the deal came into effect, there was a massive increase in exports to the Netherlands, Ireland, Germany, Italy, and a less dramatic but significant increase to our top EU customer, the United Kingdom. Tariff cuts were a big driver of this new growth. Where the deal cut tariffs between 5 and 10%, average growth in the recent 2-year period was 40%. Where tariffs decreased 10% or more, the average increase was 20%. Now these are impressive numbers, but there's more. Goods that were tariff-free saw a 28% jump, likely a signal of the power that a free trade deal has to profile and promote Canadian exports, in this case in the European market. At the same time, imports from the EU to Canada also increased sharply, at virtually the same rate as exports. Key import growth was seen in autos and parts and organic chemicals, primarily from Belgium, aerospace products from France, and machinery from both Germany and Italy. Overall, import growth was somewhat more broadly distributed across EU members than exports. Notably, the bilateral trade balance has deteriorated in the post-deal period. Now, some critics badmouth this as evidence against doing deals like this. Nothing could be further from the truth. As already mentioned, growth in both directions was virtually identical. The issue is that imports from the EU were greater from the get-go, and it would be virtually impossible to close the gap in just 2 years without lopsided results. And it's abundantly clear that lopsided results undermine trade deals. The point is that overall trade is up, trade that might not have occurred without a deal. The outcomes argue that the deal is working well, both from the European side and ours. But is it the last of its kind? Is COVID-augmented political upheaval a death knell for large and comprehensive trade deals? Well, it's really hard to say in the middle of the mayhem. Cut through the bombastic anti-trade rhetoric, and it seems that the bulk of the acrimony is really aimed at leveling tilted trade tables. Let's face it, if one side feels that the dice are loaded, the game is over, and at least until trust is restored. Well, is that possible? Well, the United States and China did come to a Phase 1 trade agreement last fall, against expectations of this being impossible. The UK and continental Europe do seem to want some form of trade agreement. Other nations seem to want into the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership, or the CPTPP agreement. However, for the moment, attention has been diverted to getting through the pandemic. What happens afterward remains to be seen. At that point, there are two broad possible outcomes. The struggle to restore trust and global trade's supporting institutions could resume, clearing a path for the resumption of some form of post-COVID-19 globalization. The alternative is to retreat into an acrimonious, regionalized, and ultimately higher-cost backwater. Efficiency suggests the former will prevail, but generalized antagonism to this outcome cannot be ignored. The bottom line? CETA is a fine example of what a well-crafted free trade deal is designed to achieve. Increased bidirectional trade, relatively even growth in both, leveraging of regional comparative advantage, and lower overall costs. There are downsides to freer trade, but the era of trade deals has given us longer growth cycles, contained inflation, some of the lowest unemployment rates that we've ever seen, and that across many nations. Let's hope that in regard to global trade, a reversal doesn't have us lamenting that we don't know what we've got till it's gone. Until next week, I'm Peter Hall.